In today's video, we need to get through a few things. Number one, what has been going on with Tesla recently? Tesla is obviously a very crazy company to follow, and like most weeks, there has been a lot going on. And number two, I want to discuss something that I think is happening in Tesla. There is a transformation, a shift occurring. We are seeing that happen right now, and I think in the not so distant future, it will look very, very different to what it does today. So I want to talk about that as well. So first, let's cover what's been going on. And I think the number one thing that we need to tick off first is FSD, full self-driving, because this week has been very, very eventful when it comes to autonomous driving. If you're not on X or you don't follow Tesla as closely as I do, you may have missed out on this piece of information, but basically Elon has confirmed that Tesla will be getting rid of the FSD steering wheel nag in FSD version 12.4, which is expected to launch in the upcoming weeks. Unfortunately, I don't actually own a Tesla right now. I do want one as soon as I possibly can, but at the moment I am using my cash to actually buy Tesla stock and to save for a house. But anyway, the steering wheel nag is basically something that happens in all Tesla vehicles, and it's where the FSD software actually prompts the driver to apply pressure to touch the wheel. And it's kind of just to let the vehicle know that, hey, I'm still alive, I'm still paying attention, there's still a driver in the vehicle, because remember, right now, this software is not unsupervised. It has to be supervised by a human driver. But Tesla are planning to remove this, which I guess means that the software is actually going completely hands-free, whereby the driver doesn't actually have to interact with the vehicle unless they absolutely need to. This is not to say that it's moving to being 100% autonomous. No, it's still supervised as far as I believe, unless something crazy happens. And the driver still needs to be present, alert, paying attention. However, that steering wheel nag will be removed. Now, to me, this is a big deal because this is one step closer to the direction of full autonomy. Now, some people will say that FSD is just happening too slowly, or that another company like Mercedes or someone else will solve and complete full autonomous driving before Tesla does. Two things I want to say about this. Well, three, I guess. Number one, no other company has what Tesla has. No other company has the fleet that they have. No other company has the data that they have, and the data being really, really important. No other company is really approaching solving full self-driving the way that Tesla are. And then, of course, we add the compute power that Tesla now have on top of this, and you have a recipe for success. And to me, the way that Tesla are going about this makes the most sense, and it is the most scalable. However, just sticking with Mercedes for a second, they do have a feature that does allow a level 3 autonomous driving ability. Now, this sounds amazing. If this was exactly as it sounded, Mercedes would be way ahead of Tesla. But the headlines are not telling you the entire truth on this. When you start digging a little bit deeper, you do actually start to see that there are loads of restrictions on this feature that Mercedes have. For example, you can't actually use it when you're going through construction zones. Only can be used in the daytime, not to be used during rain or snow. The car must be traveling at 40 miles per hour or less, and it only works on pre-approved map routes, which actually equates to about 0.2% of roads. And also, I think I read that it can only be used on highways. However, there is that speed limit as well, so I don't really understand how that works. But either way, there are loads and loads of restrictions. It is not fully autonomous. It's not even really level 3 autonomy fully because it's so restricted. Also, the Mercedes Drive Pilot feature does still require the driver to take over and be fully alert ready at any second, although the media does make it sound otherwise. Now, I do recommend that you watch this video here by Whole Mars Catalog and go and follow him on X as well. He's basically comparing Tesla's FSD to Mercedes driver assistance, and he tallies up the number of human interventions, required during these drives. And it's pretty fascinating stuff when you actually see this happening in front of you. You can see Elon then replied saying Tesla is half a decade ahead or more. Now, I think Tesla are ahead in many areas, from full self-driving to manufacturing efficiencies to their factories to energy to robotics. Everything, EVs, of course. And when you start to dive into the company in more detail, it's really hard not to be so confused as to why you're seeing the stock go down and down and down. The intrinsic value and the stock movements don't always align. And based on everything in this video, and please watch till the very end because I want to discuss a transformation that is happening, Although Tesla stock hasn't been doing very well this year so far, I still do see Tesla to be one of the most undervalued stocks and a very, if not the most misunderstood company out there. On this piece of software here called Forecaster, they have this section called rankings. And what you can basically do is you can look in detail at any of the global known indices. Let me just jump into the S&P 500 here. And basically what it does is it tells you everything you need to know about that index, tells you all the different stocks, and it tells you if that index is undervalued or overvalued right now. But it also does something incredibly interesting. It ranks all the stocks within an index by their fair value. So you can see which stocks right now are currently the most undervalued or overvalued. And to get this fair value figure, they actually use 3 different methods of valuation. They use the discounted cash flow, the Peter Lynch method, and the economic value added method. They then use these 3 to get an average, because this way you're not just utilizing one part of the balance sheet. For example, if you utilize the Peter Lynch method, you're just looking at earnings and earnings growth. You get a way more well-rounded approach doing it this way. So you can filter by top 10 stocks, top 30, top 50, or even by sectors. We'll leave it as all stocks right now, and we'll click this fair value button to bring us the most undervalued stock in the S&P 500. So interestingly, it is bringing up Tesla as the number 1 position. So let's open Tesla out here and we can actually see some more information about this. So Forecaster tells you everything you need to know, but let's just scroll down here. This section here, look, current price is $168.47, which is 520% below the fair value. And in this graph here, you can actually see that the average fair value of Tesla versus the price have been very different for quite a while now. If you want 10% off Forecaster, then use the code Hayley10 and click the link in the description. And also you can try it out for free for 24 hours first. Again, link in the description. I highly recommend. I think it's a fantastic piece of software. Elon also had some other things to say about FSD. He said 12.5 and 12.6 are in various stages of testing. We're getting into rare, complex situations, for example, going down a narrow one-way road, encountering a road closure, and having to reverse out to find a new route, or route if you're in America. That closure also needs to be communicated to the rest of the fleet so you don't have a whole bunch of Teslas stuck down a road, which of course did happen in that Netflix movie. Was it Netflix? The one that came out recently where there was a catastrophic end of the world and all them Teslas got piled up on the road. Of course, he doesn't want that happening. But anyway, this does show you the pace of innovation that Tesla have. They are like no other company, in my opinion. Now, if you follow Tesla at all and you follow FSD, you already know that Tesla have the data advantage by far. No other company out there has anywhere near the amount of data that Tesla has. But you might also be wondering and noticing that the FSD updates actually seem to be happening quicker and quicker and quicker. And there's a good reason for that. For a long time, Tesla was actually compute constrained. So they had the data, but they were constrained in terms of compute power. But this is no longer the case, meaning they are now able to improve FSD much faster. Don't underestimate the power of having the data and compute power. These two things combined, there's only one result in my opinion. And on top of all this, remember not so long ago, Tesla actually rolled out a scheme, if you will, whereby many Teslas got a free trial of FSD. And this was primarily to increase its uptake, to get more data and to get more people interested in this software. I did speak about this in the previous video, but hopefully what this will mean is that in the future, these people will actually convert to paying users. Brett from ARK Invest also made this point here too, showing the difference in the number of miles driven per day by Waymo versus Tesla. And you can see the numbers are incredibly different. Lastly, on the topic of FSD is the apparent preliminary approval to launch FSD in China. We will have to keep an eye on this and actually see how this all unfolds, but it is important to recognize that China is a massive market for EVs in general. However, right now only Tesla and BYD are the two companies actually making money on selling electric vehicles. I think it will be a pretty big deal if Tesla are actually able to roll out FSD in China and start collecting data and start testing it over there as well. But it does seem like the government and regulations are going to be the thing that actually slow FSD down and robotaxi down, more so than the technology behind it, which is quite crazy, but I guess that's kind of the way the world works, unfortunately. Okay, moving on. We also saw this week a lot of information about how BP reportedly wants to expand their EV presence in the US, and they're actually looking to invest $1 billion in EV charging stations by 2030. And you can see that the headlines are reading as if BP is looking to buy Tesla supercharging stations. And of course, this does come after the information that Tesla laid off their supercharging team. Now, obviously, on the face of it, as with what happens with most of the media articles about Tesla, this is quite concerning. But two things here. Number one, don't forget that BP spent $100 million last year on Tesla supercharging hardware. And number two, I don't think this is as straightforward as what some of the articles are reading. I really, really do not think that Tesla are about to sell their supercharging network in the US to BP. No, I don't think so. Tesla's supercharging network is an absolute moat. It's a competitive advantage for Tesla, and I don't think they will be handing that over to a big giant like BP. As far as I'm aware, Tesla leases most of the sites that they have their supercharging hardware on. So maybe if there's some truth in this, BP are perhaps considering to take over some of those sites that Tesla no longer want, or maybe the ones that Tesla are no longer looking to actually build out. Maybe there's some truth in that, but I don't think it's as simple as Tesla selling all of their supercharging sites to BP. Then Elon said this, just to reiterate, Tesla will spend well over $500 million expanding our supercharging network to create thousands of new chargers this year. That's just on new sites and expansions, not counting operations costs, which are much higher. So clearly, they are not just giving up on their supercharging network, and we will continue to see it grow. They are continuing to expand it and invest into it. I guess they've just come to realize that they can streamline this area of the business, they can save costs, and they don't need as many people as they possibly thought they did back in the day to actually achieve their future plans. This then kind of links to another thing that we've learned recently, which is the Tesla semi-truck. This isn't actually a Tesla vehicle that you hear much about or you see very much. I've never seen one here in the UK, of course, and most people in the US have never seen one either. There aren't that many of them right now. It's not a vehicle that Tesla have in high production, but we do know that Pepsi being the massive company Pepsi, are using them. They do have Tesla semi-trucks in their fleet. Alongside Pepsi, Cisco are also a customer, but now we also have Walmart and Costco. So massive corporations utilizing the Tesla Semi. Tesla plans to ramp up the production of these trucks in late 2025 to early 2026, I think. Then we have to ask ourselves, well, what is going to be the cost savings to companies actually using an electric semi-truck compared to a non-electric option? Because of course, that's what businesses care about. They want to save money. They want to keep more of their money rather than spending more. And I've read that it's about a 23% fuel cost reduction, or anywhere between $180 to $500 saved per day per truck. But I don't know this to be absolute. I don't know if this is facts or just some things that I've read. But either way, there is a substantial cost savings to companies. Tesla then shared a new video of Optimus showing the progression it's making. And I'm glad we got this actually, because in a recent video, I think I said that I expect a new Optimus video to come soon. We've got one and it was a cool one. We saw Optimus doing useful practical work, sorting battery cells, and actually, importantly, we saw it fixing its mistakes or mishaps as it went, using end-to-end neural networks. And also Tesla said that they are seeing fewer human interventions needed as time goes on. So Optimus will be in Tesla factories doing helpful work. This means that even without having Optimus in other factories, other companies' factories, Tesla are going to be saving money and increasing efficiencies. This will benefit Tesla and then Tesla customers and Tesla shareholders. They will then loan or sell these humanoid robots to other businesses, and eventually they will end up in the homes. I think Elon actually said that Optimus will be within Tesla factories doing useful work by the end of 2024, but it seems to be happening quicker. We know the timeline sometimes that Elon gives us can be a little bit optimistic, but things are looking really, really good in my opinion. I'm no robotics expert, but I do watch a lot of experts speak about this, and it looks like it's really, really getting there now. Also, they are giving Optimus new hands later this year, and these new hands will have 22 degrees of freedom. Just to give you some context, human hands, I believe, have 27 degrees of freedom. So what does this mean? Well, this means that you suddenly have a humanoid robot even more close to the human form. And obviously hands are very, very, very fundamental in doing intricate, precise work. So the abilities are going to be expanded here. In terms of production, we had this tweet by Smokeaway saying Optimus production ramp 1,000 2024, by 2025 10,000, 100,000 by 2026, and so on. Now, that seems very, very quick. Elon did say not quite that fast, but not far wrong, which is kind of crazy to think about these things really, going into mass production and having a load of them. It's kind of scary, I guess, but equally, I think they're in the right hands. Tesla are the company to do this, and we are going to see a very, very different world in the future. Now, all this news is important. Of course, every piece of information that is accurate that we get on Tesla helps us investors build a better picture of what's happening at the company that we are investing into. We are buying a part of that company by being investors. Things are moving forward. Things are happening very, very fast in the world of Tesla. But all of this stuff that we see with Tesla often comes down to this shift that I was telling you about at the beginning of this video. The transformation that is happening. I think what we are going to see is that the percentage of their automotive revenue as a percentage of their total revenue will decrease, and their other revenue streams will increase and account for more of the total revenue as time goes on. Right now, the gross margin for Tesla is around 17%, but I think this has the possibility of going as high as even 70%, which is obviously vastly, vastly different. And I think this will happen in the upcoming years. This will happen as they scale FSD, as they license FSD, and as they build out a robo-taxi fleet. All of these different areas that they're working on and they are expanding right now will have very, very different and much, much higher margins than their automotive segment does. Then you add in the growth that we are seeing in the energy segment, which is of course the area of Tesla that already has the highest margins. But then thinking outside of FSD, robotaxi and energy, they also could end up using Dojo as a cloud software as a service computer for other companies, like what Amazon do with AWS. And then we have Optimus to add in here as well. I've spoken about how Optimus's revenue and margins and stuff might work in a previous video, which I'll leave linked on the screen now, but it's very, very exciting. And as soon as Tesla make this shift and they move primarily to software margins, SaaS margins, this company will be worth so much more. Now, of course, this is just my opinion and this is not financial advice, but I believe Cathie Wood and her team at ARK Invest have also said that they expect Tesla's robotaxi margins to resemble software as a service margins, SaaS margins, reaching between 70% and 85%. So I think Tesla are in the process right now of transitioning from an automotive maker to a company generating significant revenue from software or software level margin business areas. Now, I'm not under any illusions that this will just happen overnight. I think it will be a long transition process. And I think for a while, what we'll see happen is actually the higher SaaS margins will offset some of those lower automotive ones that we see. I forgot to say this actually earlier when we were talking about energy, which is the highest margin business area right now. But Tesla also just secured a $3 million worth of Megapack order from Australia. So things are also happening in this area of the business, which doesn't get as much news, it doesn't get as much coverage because it's not as exciting, it's not as fun as talking about perhaps a new vehicle release or something like that. But there's a lot of growth happening in energy. I've also been talking to my Discord recently, which if you want to join, there are limited spots, I believe, at this point left. Check in the description below. But basically, we've been talking about how Elon's different companies actually fit together. And it makes complete sense to to me and to a lot of other people that Tesla can definitely benefit from utilizing Elon's other companies. For example, thinking about the robo-taxi platform, once that gets up and running, it could perhaps use Starlink. People will eventually want and need to be doing useful things whilst they are traveling, and most of those useful things will require connection. Also, I don't know much about the Boring Company, but imagine if Elon prioritizes Tesla vehicles and especially the robo-taxi to travel through these tunnels, and this was a way to cut down travel time. That could be pretty impactful for a robo-taxi fleet. And then Grok could actually be the voice of robo-taxi communicating with the passengers, and maybe even the voice of Optimus, if Optimus is ever going to have a voice. But with all that said, I think the most important thing that Tesla investors can do right now is to vote. So please look into that. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I will put a video on the screen now. And remember, if you do want to try Forecaster out for free, which I recommend you do, and you want to get some money off 10%, use my discount code Hayley10, all in caps, and use the link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll be back with another very soon.